These are institutional needs. But as Mon just pointed out, from DHS to DOT, DOJ, the requirements are very diverse, but they all are encompassing under this NAICS code.
So they're buying expertise and not widgets here.
Absolutely right. They need brains, not hardware under this NAICS code. They lean on contractors to design that roadmap.
So this isn't just about compliance, it's about shaping programs.
How you present your capabilities is going to be absolutely essential. So pro tip here.
Welcome to Cracking the Code, the podcast where data meets strategy. Today, we are zooming in on NAICS 541611, the government's consulting power tool. With me is our research lead, Mon, and CEO of BidExecs, Reena, who never strays away from the contractors' need to hear. Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, Elizabeth, I've been knee-deep in spending patterns, and NAICS 541611 is anything but quiet.
This one is deceptively competitive. Everyone thinks they can play here, but as Mon and her research team will show you, it's a little bit different. So let's get started with this.
Awesome. Before we dive in here, here's what we're covering. How much is really being spent under this NAICS code? Who's buying? Why timing matters more than ever? And most importantly, how you can break in and win. So let's get started. Mon, give us a quick definition. What is NAICS 541611?
It's the federal government go-to bucket for non-technical consulting. So program management, strategic planning, compliance support, performance improvement. All those essential services that help agencies run more like businesses.
And that's exactly why this code is so powerful. You don't have to be an IT firm or have a lab full of engineers. If you understand operations, policy, or organizational change, there's room for you here.
So it's broad, but it's not vague. It's the infrastructure behind federal agencies manage complexity, right?
Exactly. This code touches everything from COVID planning, complex program management, consulting of massive agency restructures, pretty much everywhere where policy and program management help is required.
All right, Mon, let's start with the big picture. How much money are we really talking about?
Okay, so from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 2024, federal agencies spent over $45 billion under NAICS code 541611. However, this massive slice of pie has been decreasing over time, going from $12.1 billion in fiscal year 20 to $6 billion in fiscal year 24.
So what's causing this decline?
It's the complexity. Agencies might be using other NAICS codes to help deal with evolving missions, pandemic, digital modernizations, policy shifts. It's not that the spending overall is going down, it's shifting a little bit away from this NAICS code.
Can we break this down a little bit more, Mon? So who is buying?
No surprise here. DOD leads at almost $12 billion across 6,700 contracts. HHS follows with $8.6 billion and 6,500 contracts. HS comes in third at $4.7 billion, followed by DOJ and DOT. And inside DOD, well, big money went to the Army, Air Force, Navy, Defense Health Agency. As for HHS alone, CMS accounted for $2.2 billion.
That kind of detail is what smart companies use for targeting. If you're going after 541611, don't say we work for DOD or we work for HHS. you have to be a little bit clearer and say, we align with CMS's Medicare transformation efforts, or we support DHS resiliency planning. Be that specific, and that's how you're going to win in this NAICS code.
All right, guys, can we get a little more tangible? What does a 541661 contract actually look like?
Sure, we have a few examples. A $136 million award for CMS data management, but also tiny buys as 6,000 coaching session.
That's the key, right? This NAICS code supports both strategic level buys, and it also has more smaller tactical programs that agencies require. This really means that small firms with focused services can break in even without a GSA schedule.
All right, let's double click on DOD for a second. Reena, what makes the DOD such a magnet under this NAICS code?
Yeah, so there are three things. One, it's just a sheer operational scale. Millions of people, thousands of programs, there's just volume. So there's a lot of requirement here. Two, they constantly need outside advisory to keep up with the shifting policies. So this NAICS code and the services under this NAICS are perfect for that. And three, the DoD is constantly under pressure to modernize while staying compliant with legacy rules. And companies that do the modernization, that help with the planning, help with the understanding of how those regulations impact the DoD, are doing well under this NAICS code.
And we can also not forget that DoD's contracts range from enterprise-level program offices to a small-scale change management at base-level command. So we have a broad diversity onto which part of the DoD small businesses can come in.
All right, so you guys are saying that even niche firms, if they align right, can carve a lane.
Absolutely. If you're a small business with cleared workforce, a history of disciplined execution, DoD has room for you. But you need to market smart. And I mentioned some of the techniques earlier. It's how you market your capability and how you speak to your capabilities that DoD can relate to is what's important.
Let's pivot. Mon, how is HHS different than the DoD? Obviously, like health and defense would have different needs. So how would HHS look at consulting rather than, the DoD does? Can you give us an overview on how HHS is spending under this NAICS code?
Sure. Well, HHS awarded nearly 6,700 contracts, totaling $8.6 billion under NAICS code 541611 over 5 years. That's everything from CMS to NIH to HRSA.
Yeah, and don't forget, HHS is one of the most policy-intensive departments. When new legislation hits, whether it's public health, behavioral health, or telehealth, they lean on contractors to design that roadmap.
So this isn't just about compliance, it's about shaping programs.
Exactly. If you understand policy, population health, strategic communications, HHS is a gold mine. And BidExecs can help firms get positioned before the RFP hits the street.
Awesome. Okay, well, I obviously don't want to ignore DHS, DOJ, or the DOT. Mon, can you give us a rapid rundown of those three big players?
Sure. Well, on Department of Homeland Security, DHS, over the past 5 years, they awarded 2,300 contracts and went $4.7 billion in spend. It was mostly destined to program support, mission assurance, and organizational transformation. Within the DOJ, there were 2,200 contracts and $1.9 billion in spend, often focused on case management systems, forensic operation support, and investigative back office functions. As of DOT, while not as large, it remains active in enterprise, PMO, and safety programs, especially with new infrastructure funding.
And the report has the complete details with all these charts that I would encourage readers to look at. And there's a pattern. We see a steady spending every year. These aren't flukes. These are institutional needs. But as Mon just pointed out, from DHS to DOT, DOJ, the requirements are very diverse, but they all are encompassing under this NAICS code.
So they're buying expertise and not widgets here.
Absolutely right. They need brains, not hardware under this NAICS code.
And as Reena mentioned before, I really want to remind everyone that the slides you are seeing here are not the complete report. There is a ton more information down to sub-agency level spend, so make sure you visit our website and download the full report.
All right, guys, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Do small businesses even have a chance under this NAICS code?
They have more than a chance. They won 5,000 contracts compared to 2,400 for large businesses during the same period.
And that's huge. And it's not just the size, it's about being responsive, certified, and aligned. 541611 sees a lot of 8A, SDVOSB, and Hub Zone wins. If you are small, you have the niche capabilities, you really have good growth and can find opportunities under this NAICS code and be equally competitive. And many of them weren't even on GSA or big vehicles. They were open market through agency-specific IDIQs, single awards. But again, it comes down to positioning. If you are not marketing your past performance correctly, you won't even get invited to a team or get noticed.
So how would you recommend a small business approach this market?
Well, as I mentioned before, small businesses won more contracts than large businesses from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 24. That tells us two things. One, agencies want the small businesses support. And two, there's still room at the table if you bring value, but you have to speak the government's language, capability statements, NAICS alignments, set-aside usage, and readiness for vehicles.
And I'm going to put in a plug here, right? That's where BidExecs comes in. We help you not just identify the opportunities, but also build credibility. So you're invited to a team and you can win. If you have not explored our Street Cred program, I highly recommend you consider it immediately.
All right, Mon and Reena, so we've talked about who buys and how much, but when does this buying actually happen?
Well, there's a massive spending spike in the fourth quarter. That's July through September, but if you wait till then, you've missed the boat.
Exactly. Q1 and Q2, October to March, is when the real work happens. That's market research, responding to sources, studying the pre-solicitations. That's what you do in Q1 and Q2. If you are waiting until Q3 to submit proposals, you are a little bit behind. And what I mean by submit proposals is responding to those early market research notices that the government puts in, or phase ones. There's a lot of phased requirements coming out right now. You should be responding to those sources sought notices, RFIs in Q1 and Q2. And if you're not in the game by Q1, you're not going to be on the scoreboard by Q4. If you don't have a team to track early stage activities, get help. You don't need a 10-person BD shop. There are plenty of other avenues for you, BidExecs obviously being one of the options.
So how are these contracts awarded? Are they all through GSA?
Not at all. The federal supply schedule was most common here, but BOAs, BPAs, GWACs, and IDCs were all used, and over 30,000 contracts had no socioeconomic destination, but set-asides are growing.
Yeah, this is where the firm's go-to-market strategy matters. You don't need a GSA schedule. Now, obviously, we recommend as a federal contractor that you look into being on the GSA schedule, but not just for doing business under this NAICS code. You are not limited if you don't have a GSA schedule yet. You need to be searchable, present, and be responsive to those requirements and market research notices that the government puts out.
Awesome. So final question here. Should a company that is new to federal contracting go after NAICS 541611?
Well, that depends. If you have a commercial consulting past performance, you have the commercial consulting chops and the ability to show outcomes, absolutely yes. But don't do it blindly. Build some partnerships, respond early, get help. And that's what we do at BidExecs. We want to make sure your first move isn't your last, because a lot of companies who have not done business with the government before, they think they're going to respond to one or two of these and somehow end up with a contract. That's not the case, but we help navigate through that process with our consulting.
And really the best advice we can give you is use the data. The answers are there, you just need the right lens to catch it.
So Reena, would you consider the NAICS 541661 easier or harder than other NAICS?
Well, 541611 is not easier or harder. It's broader, but that also means it's more competitive because it's a consulting NAICS code, and almost any company with project management, admin, or strategic services tries to go after or enter the opportunities under this NAICS code. But 541611 is where everyone thinks they can compete, but standing out takes more than being good at project management, right? Agencies are flooded with options. So you need proof of execution, especially through federal past performance or direct mission alignment. It's also, again, as I said earlier, how you present your capabilities is going to be absolutely essential. So pro tip here, if you're new to government contracting and don't have any past performance, don't lead with this NAICS code. Team up with the prime, be a subcontractor, support a BPA, or find a niche within a specific agency.
So Reena, what would you say makes this NAICS attractive despite the competition?
Well, there's a reason it draws competition. More than $30 billion spent across every mission set: health, defense, justice, transportation, homeland security, and others. It's one of the few NAICS codes that cuts across every federal priority, right? Digital transformation, energy, climate, pandemic response, cybersecurity, you name it. So if you're already doing strategic consulting or program support in the commercial space, we can help you bridge that messaging into the federal space. But don't start cold. Map your experience to agency missions, even if they come from the commercial side, or you're moving from a civilian agency into the DOD. You really got to align your experience with that agency's mission.
And that's really what we hope cracking the code helps you do: decode the data and then chart a path forward. Again, as Mon had reminded us, the slides of discussion here are not a complete report. There are a ton more information down into the sub-agency level spins. Let's win smart together. Until next time, good hunting.